So we're back on the Honda Accord, and our power steering whine has gotten way a lot worse. And we learned in the last video that when you buy an engine, particularly one of these engines from JDM, which stands for, you've heard me say, Japanese Domestic Market, engines that were manufactured for use in Japan, they are not the same as the engines that are manufactured for the United States market. Mainly all of your belt-driven accessories. And we learned this when we tried to get a replacement power steering pump, because that's what was whining. And I'll show you the main reason that these are different, and the one component you need to save from your original engine to put on the JDM engine so that you can get US parts that are readily available for these engines. So we're going to have to tear back into it, and of course step one is the dreaded draining of the coolant. So hang on and let's get into it. All right, I've got the coolant drained, and I've got my power steering hoses, both the return line and the pressure line, disconnected from the power steering pump. Get you some paper towels ready if you don't have the little plastic plugs, which I don't. So the part that is crucial to save from your old engine is the water pump housing. The water pump housing bolts to the block, and not only has the water pump, but it also has the connection for the power steering pump and the alternator and the belt tensioner. It's all made into that housing. Well, the housing for this JDM engine has different mounts for the alternator. I'm going to try to do this without taking too much off. So I'll remove the power steering pump, and we're going to have to remove the belt tensioner as well, because the bolts I need to get to are right under and behind this. So I would suspect we're going to move the belt tensioner, remove the belt tensioner and the alternator, just to make things simpler so I can see what's going on. So let me get those two out of the way and we'll get you back. I wanted to show you the difference in the two tensioners. If we match up the mounting surface, you see how the one on the right sticks out so much further than the one on the left? This is the one that came from the original Honda engine. This is the JDM engine. That's why we can't reuse these accessories. They don't line up correctly for the power steering pumps or the alternators that you can get from your local AutoZone or O'Reilly's. Okay, so I got the alternator about ready to come out. The top bolt is a 12 millimeter. There's one bolt on the bottom. It's like a 14 millimeter. Don't know why they're different, but anyway, your electrical connection, which is right there, go ahead and take your top bolt out, loosen your bottom bolt, and then you can pull this out a good bit where now you can get, I think it's actually an 11 millimeter. I use my 12 because it's what I had out here. Too lazy to go in to get the other, so the 12 worked fine. Get your electrical wire off, unplug your wiring harness, and now you can push that back in, get down there and take your bottom bolt all the way out. It's not difficult to get to. None of this is really difficult to get to. It's just step by step. Take that bolt out, and now this alternator can come out. There's one of my bolts for the water pump housing. The other one, I can see it right down in there. And then I'll go down below, take the air conditioning compressor loose, get those 2 bolts out, and we'll be able to pry this dude out. Well, that escalated quickly. Got our air conditioning compressor just sort of sitting off to the side here. The lower bolts of that air conditioning compressor is going to be kind of tough to get to, but if you've got a ratcheting 12mm wrench, you can get those. These top ones were wanting to round off, but I did get them broke loose, so putting them back, I may end up having to get some new bolts. But anyway, the problem is, and that's why you see some disassembly here, your water neck right here. I had forgotten that you've got a hose plus this hard metal pipe that goes into the top of that water neck. So it's not like when you take this water pump housing, which this is it right here, I've got there's a nut on 2 studs, and then the other 2 are bolts. And I've got, this is it right here, and it's all the bolts are out. I just have to break it loose. But before I do that, your water neck is attached to it at the bottom with 3 bolts. There's one here, there's one here on the bottom that wouldn't be too terrible to get to from underneath the car. But then there's one slap up against the block on the other side. You can't get to that without taking your intake plenum off. To take your intake plenum off, you have to take your throttle body off, a number of vacuum hoses and whatnot. It's not difficult. It's just, you know, it's time consuming and a little tedious, but you need to get this loose because this metal pipe, it's bolted in place, and you don't want to start doing further disassembly. This hose, you really don't want to be pulling on it. You need to take this water neck loose before you pry this off. Well, things are now officially off the rails. I went ahead and took the starter off. It's laying right there. There was only 2 bolts. Got this funky one on the back, and then just a regular bolt there on the bottom or on the front. So yeah, just 2 bolts, and it went ahead and come on out the way. And I did that because it's going to make, which I've got all the bolts out of this now. But it's going to make, when we put this thing back together, it's going to make that a whole lot easier because, you know, you can't really see back there, and that starter not being in the way will let me get to it a whole lot better. And I didn't want to start taking motor mounts loose, although I haven't ruled that out. Just kidding. So I think I'm ready now to just start, you know, prying on that, making sure I got my coolant bucket down there and going to catch any coolant, and I'm going to try to get this off, and shouldn't be anything else in the way. If I run into a problem, if it doesn't just come right off easily, I'll get you back in here and you can experience it together. Okay, so I didn't have any trouble getting the water pump housing out. Now, this came off the JDM engine. Water pump housing. The alternator mounted with bolts going that way. Here's the water pump housing off of the original engine, and as you see, that part, they're identical. On this one, with the alternator still attached to it, you see the bolts for the alternator are totally different. The alternator is completely different. The way the power steering pump mounts is completely different. So this water pump housing is the key to when you order a JDM engine before you install it in your vehicle. As long as your alternator was working fine, you know, if you want to replace a water pump, go ahead. But if everything looks okay, you would be well better served to remove this water pump housing before you install that engine. Remove it from the original engine, install it on your JDM engine, because this is for the US domestic market and all the parts that are readily available here. Okay, I've run into a little something wanted to clue you in on. Not a big deal. So see if I can show you. When your water pump housing, you'll have two studs that have nuts once you put the housing on, and then you'll have two bolts, and they're opposite corners. Everything's great except for this stud is way too long. The housing that came off was very thick on this side, so it needed a longer stud. So my original housing is nowhere near as thick. So you can unscrew this. I've almost got it out. I just took some vice grips. I tried the stacking the nut method on the threads, but those nuts are flange nuts. You can stack them, but then you can't get your wrench in there on the inside one. So I just clamped the vice grip on it, and I don't even have the vice grip very tight now, and it's, you know, it's turning perfectly fine. Trick on the vice grips, and I only learned this like in the past couple of years, but once you clamp the vice grip on, most vice grips have a little Allen socket right here in your adjusting screw. Clamp it on, get that Allen wrench, crank this dude down even tighter. Keeps it from slipping on you. Like I say, I didn't learn that until just a couple of years ago. Felt like an idiot, but it'll be the first time. Anywho, so I'm gonna take this big old long stud out, and I'm going to go out to the original engine that's laying out in the scrap metal pile. Take that stud off of it so we can put it in here, and it be the one we need. Okay, we got our water pump housing bolted back on, and the only torque spec I could find was 33 foot-pounds. So you got bolt, nut, bolt, nut up under there. 33 foot-pounds. Also, I got the water neck bolted back on, which was way a lot easier with the starter off. So got the starter back on. Before we put anything else on, and we need to reattach the air conditioning compressor. It's a little tedious down there, so I'm not going to be able to get you down there, but you'll just have to figure out your own way of doing it. It's a little tedious. The top of the starter hooks onto a couple of hooks right here, and anyway, good luck. Got the air conditioning compressor attached. It's not too terribly bad. Those bottom two bolts, you're going to need to get those in the compressor there before you hang it on these tabs up top. Otherwise, there's no room down below to get them in afterwards. Don't thread them in, you just put them in the slots on the bottom of the starter where they go. Then hang it on these tabs. You shouldn't have too much trouble. Those are 12 millimeter, by the way. Need a 12 millimeter wrench. Got the alternator, and all this is from the original engine. The air conditioning compressor don't matter. It's the alternator and the power steering pump. That's the stuff that why we have to have this water pump housing. But I got the original alternator back on. Fits great, seeing as how it did come off this original housing. I got a new PCV valve. I had it from before when we swapped the engine. I didn't never put it in, but anyway, got that in. Next thing to do is get the alternator wired up, get our radiator hose back on, started getting the intake back on and getting everything buttoned back up. I won't bore you with all that, but I will show you. The pulleys are lined up. Given that now we've got the US domestic market water pump housing on, now these components we can readily get at the local auto parts store. So just to let you know, when you take your power steering pump off of your JDM engine, these little straps and that spacer, you can just throw all this in your spare parts leftover bucket that you have on every job. Alright, so we got everything but the power steering pump back in, and I wanted to show you that if you have forgotten how all this goes back together, your belt tensioner bolts onto the water pump housing with the center bolt. The other bolt, you have a threaded hole in this bolt here on the front would be the two holes right beside each other. The hole that's not threaded will be your bolt that goes through there and into the water pump housing. These two threaded holes on the outside here are where your power steering pump mounts. And here's our brand new Chinesium power steering pump, and I'm just going to hold it up there with my hand. Hope you can see everything lines up. So when I put my belt on, everything is in line, nothing's offset, and that's exactly where we wanted to get to. Now I have my brand new power steering pump. We're going to get it all bolted in, put the antifreeze back in, top off the power steering fluid. We're going to bleed that by keeping the front wheels are off the ground. I've got the car jacked up. Do not start the car. Top it off with the power steering fluid. Work your steering wheel back and forth several times. Make sure to put the top back on your reservoir here. It has been known to squirt out while you do that. And hopefully it'll be smooth. Get all this stuff put back together, and we'll let you watch and see. Topped off, well, I didn't have to top off the power steering fluid. We didn't leak hardly any out at all. So I didn't even have to put any in there. Recycled my antifreeze. That stuff's kind of expensive, and if you'll be careful and keep it clean, make sure there's no trash in it, you can reuse that. This antifreeze hadn't been in there long, so I didn't want to discard it and have to buy new. So recycle that. No more power steering wine. The wife will enjoy that. I will enjoy that. It was driving us crazy. So she's road ready again. I still have a little bit of an oil leak. I can't tell where it's coming from. If you remember the other video, though, I'm surprised it doesn't have a worse leak. But anyway, we'd have to reseal the whole engine because the way I had to do it, you'll see if you watch the previous video, it was a mess. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something you could use from it. If you've got a JDM engine and you're wondering why all of a sudden you can't buy an alternator or a power steering pump that will fit the engine, that's your answer. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd really appreciate that. I'm close to 1,000 subscribers. Not quite there yet. Hopefully you've got some entertainment out of this, got something you could use. Hope you guys have a good day. Just always remember, be kind to one another. See you next time.